Sairam, welcome to Sri SathyaSai Center of Arcadia. A very warm welcome to our brother, Mr. Eric Wing. We wish you all a happy and a holy Christmas, Merry Christmas. Today we have a special, wonderful speaker, Mr. Eric Wing. Eric grew up attending SSC and with SathyaSai Baba's teachings. Having Sai's love in his life has made all the difference. He has been involved with Sri SathyaSai International Organization as an officer in various roles. The experiences Eric has had with Swami and with his devotees has a profound effect on him. Studying Swami's teachings and being part of the Sai Organization has transformed him. For Eric, love is everything. It is the path and the goal. Eric is currently serving as the president of Region 8 of SSSIO. We now welcome you, Eric. Thank you, and Sairam.
Sairam, thank you. Dearest loving Lord, you are my heart, my soul, my love, and my life. You are everything to me. Please speak through me. Dearest, respected devotees, brothers and sisters, friends, it's my pleasure and honor to be here. So thank you very much, and thank you, Swami, for the chance to speak about my life and how Swami's touched me. I thought it would be somewhat interesting to know a little bit more about me. So I'll say a few words about maybe where I come from, and I think makes it even a little bit more fantastic that I know about Swami. And that is that I come from a family. It's Christmas, and we're celebrating. It's a Christmas program, and I come from a family of Christians and Methodists, and I think even some Protestants, and all the denominations on the Christian side, and story after story. And then my great-grandfather, Roy McCuskey, he was a Methodist minister and president of a school in a little town in West Virginia. Out in the middle, it would take you a long time to try to get there. A very beautiful place, but he was a president of the school there in the Depression era. And he had 3 children, and if this doesn't tell you how Christian the family was, they were John, Paul, and Leah were the kids. And Leah was my grandmother, and she was the salt of the earth, a very sweet lady. She served her parents. She played the organ in the church. She was a very special lady. And she had 2 children, Mike and Patty. And Patty was my mom. And my mother was a devoted Christian also. She taught Sunday school before she ever heard Swami's name. And she used to tell me stories when she was a kid of pining after wanting to know Jesus, and she loved his teachings of love. And as we know, Swami has said, Jesus lived on the joy of spreading love, divine love, offering divine love, and living in divine love. And she was a loving person, and she is, in many ways, I feel blessed that she has brought me to Swami. So what happened with us and how our family found Swami was in the early 70s, as a young lady, she got cancer. And her doctor was Dr. Sai. And that doctor told her, and I always laughed at this little story, he told her, he said, put all of your faith in me, and I'll cure you. Mm-hmm. And that sounds so much like Swami, right? So while she was there getting treatment, she would say, oh, if I could have only been around when Jesus was around. If I'm ever able to meet you, can I meet you? Well, it was not long after that she was a nurse, She was a nurse, an RN, and she was in the San Diego hospital. And you may have heard of a person by the name of Sam Sandweiss. Well, he wrote a book called The Holy Man and the Psychiatrist. And he had gone to India early in the 70s. He'd heard about this holy man. And I think with the scientific idea that he would figure out about this divinity and what is this whole thing, you know. So he goes and he experienced Swami's divinity while there. And when he came back, he was so transformed that he ended up, and this was pretty bold on his part, at the hospital, he said, okay, I want to have all the doctors and the nurses, let's meet in the lounge, and I'll tell you that, that God on earth has come. And I commend him for being so bold, because my mother happened to be one of the people in that room, and she said, "Oh my gosh!" So she became she started going to the San Diego Center in the early mid 70s, and that, of course, I grew up briefly with this idea that Jesus was my form, but not really. You know, I wasn't old enough to really think that way. But pretty soon, I had pictures of Swami all over our house. My mother fell in love with Swami and taught Bhavika Sai Spiritual Education, and tested that on me with stories about Swami, about his sweetness, about his sense of humor, which always attracted me to him. She would tell me stories of him going around the building, and all the students were looking out of the glass window, and he would jump out and laugh at them. And it was just a really wonderful side of Swami, and his love and his sweetness and his ability to find that thing in you that that would just twist your heart. So that's what I grew up with, and I was extremely fortunate. So that's a little bit about my background. And so I grew up in Southern California. I'm from San Diego. And as you can imagine, through the 70s and 80s, I was one of these kids that had a skateboard, and I was one of those boys, and which is good, it's fine. I had wonderful parents. And but pretty soon, later into my 20s, when I prayed to Swami. I said the Gayatri. I talked to Swami all through my youth, but I wasn't in what I would call in love with Swami. And so what's really interesting to me, and I'm bringing it in connection with sort of my background, is this sense of God as Jesus, which is God. But in a way, I thought God was this man in heaven on a throne with a robe, and was maybe stern too, right? And that changed as a Christian to someone that followed Swami. And after studying his teachings and, reading and talking to my parents and my mom about spirituality, it began to be this idea of, wait, there's something more than this dualistic approach, right? And wait a second, my consciousness underneath of my personality is God. And that's what started to change in me. And there's the self with the big S, and there's a self with the little s. And the little s is like my personality. But this belief that underneath of that was Swami. And so it's just been really interesting to me in preparing for this talk to think about that change as when you're younger to when you get older, and your understanding of what you think God is. And I'll tell you, even now, I feel that God is something, and even Swami says, if the whole world, if all of creation got together and used the ocean as ink, they could never describe God. And I don't mean to do this, but he's beyond even this idea that I think he is, even now. He's so immense, he's so vast that those type of thoughts, that type of thinking, that helps me, because it makes me feel I'm very lucky, because God is so great. And so anyway, it's just a pretty interesting path down this road of who do you think God is. And so The most important thing, one of the most important things, I've had many important things, but one of the most important things that happened to me was developing this love for God. And I won't say that I did anything. What happened was, in my early 20s, I started to repeat the name of God. I had a desire that I wanted to have this never-ending name of God going, the unceasing prayer. And I started saying Rama. Rama was my name. That was the form that I really loved. And so I started saying Rama. And then I realized, wait a second, there's no love at all. And this is a perfect theme for Christmas. Without love, I don't know whether or not Swami says it's the water or the soap, but it's one or the other. I think it's the water. Without water and soap and effort, you can't clean something, and you have to have love. And so Swami, my discussions with Swami, and I said, I should take my love for my parents. I don't love anything. I didn't feel that I could say that I loved anything. Selfish, 22-year-old, 23-year-old boy, doesn't love anything. But I tell you, I loved my parents. And I said, what I'll do is I'll picture Swami. I'll say the name of Rama because I love the name Rama. And yet I'll take the love that I have for my parents and I'll put it onto Swami while I'm saying Rama, Rama, Rama. And what happened, and you've heard me maybe tell the story to some of you, how I felt like I was looking for love with a flashlight, and then up over the mountains came the sun, because this love was so undescribable. It was blissful, of just smiling bliss all the time. And what Swami gave me, and I can't say that's a prescription that anyone should follow. I don't know what happened, but I can tell you through Swami's grace, which is everything, I somehow or another developed, Swami gave me this, pulled the curtain back from who I really am, which is this love. And what that gave me was everything. It gave me my love for Swami, my faith. Everything was based on this love. And that's why I say we should be like Jesus, spreading love, offering divine love, receiving divine love, and living in divine love. And so love has meant everything to me. It's, we might have a study circle, but if we have a study circle on love, you'll notice me perk up and smile. I'll be a different person. So, that has meant everything to me. Another important story I thought I would tell since I was here was Swami's omnipresence in our lives and his omniscience. One time before I was going to go in my first trip to India was in 1995. And I was 27. And just before that, I had gotten married and I was driving on a mountain road and singing a bhajan probably, or doing something very sweet, because that's what I would do when I drove. And I was driving this mountain curvy road. And at one point you can either be on the inside, or if you're going around the outside, that's what I was doing. And it was a hairpin turn with a mountain of face there. And Swami put the idea in my mind to look under the truck, this truck, Mack truck with a trailer in back that would carry gravel and big rocks. And then it had a trailer hitch to another one, it was a double trailer. I could tell from looking under the tires that it was going to cut the mountain too tight. And when it did that, the trailer in back was going to hit the mountain and come into my lane. All of this within a split second, obviously Swami's grace. I'm looking, I see it. Now it just so happens that on the outside of the turn, there was a turnoff. So rather than continuing around the turn, knowing it was dangerous, I went straight onto the turnoff. So I'm driving, I went straight, and then I looked up at the driver, and the driver was turning the truck, and they have these air seats where they bounce. And he had glasses on, and he was looking down at me sternly. And as I looked at him, I looked back through the windshield, and I could now see the very bottom of the tires. The trailer was 15 feet in the air and right in front of me, but as I was going past it, and I saw it hit and go, and he disappeared. But I stopped the car and I said, Swami, Swami, thank you so much. You saved me. And it's so funny. You'll laugh at this because I think you'll all identify with this a little bit. But I drove a little further and then I pulled over again and I said, Swami, Swami, thank you. I said the Gayatri. I was just thrilled that it had happened. And so this is before the trip. And so in December of 1995, I took this trip with my wife and my mother. And I thought you would find this something that was I thought it was sweet. It was a little entry in my diary the night before I was going to go to see Swami for the first time. And I was thrilled to go. And so I'll get back to this story on the truck and the driver, because it has to do with when I finally did meet Swami on this trip in person. And so I said this, I wrote this down, December 13th, 1995. My first trip to see Swami, day one in my diary, I wrote. What a wonderful day. It rained all last night with lots of wind, and then it went all away to make a perfect day. Well, what does this all mean, to go to India to see Sai Baba? How can I put into words just how I feel? For 20 years, I have heard and read, always saying, I'll go soon. And now the chance has come. If I do not remember the significance of this trip at all times, my mind easily slips into wandering thoughts, wondering about trivial little things. But when my focus is on Swami, it all seems like a fantastic dream, as if I am truly having something so perfect happen to me. All of our lives we see things, fantastic things happen to others, and we are happy. We wonder, what if that were me? How would I feel? What would it take to have that happen? What effect will this have on my destiny, my goal of liberation? How soon will I merge with Swami? I have practiced his teachings more and more over the past 2 years. Since he came more into my life, that love had developed. I have thought of him as God over 20 years on and off. But to go to see the sun when you have only heard of it, had it described or dreamt of it, to actually look into the eyes of love and truth, to feel a connection with oneself, with God. I wonder how long I have waited, eons to be with him. And now to only have these 20 years to compare that longing to. What if I remembered every life, all of the longing of these many lifetimes, measured against how long I have waited to see him? I am truly excited. Somehow I feel like I'd wait forever, because I know just how magnificent his glory is. I can feel the very edge of it. I simply want him to always hold on to me. That was sweet. And so I was so excited to go. And the reason I wanted to talk about this is, for me, it's the most important moment of my life. And so we go to see Swami, and I could talk for a long time about all the little wonderful things that Swami did to make such a special moment of everything. Landing in Bangalore, taking a taxi through the countryside. It was a magical, mysterious adventure for our family. We loved it. And we arrived, and so we saw, I saw Swami, and like I said, I have many stories, but he called us in for an interview as a family. And I mention this because of the lessons that we learned from it, that I think are applicable to all of us, and also the sweet interaction. And so he had a large 30-person group in there, and some people spoke. They were from Iran, and didn't speak nothing. He spoke Farsi to them, and did some other things. And I think you probably heard of the Pink Twins were in there, and some other wonderful people. And there was an Australian man who Swami called into the inner room, and he left the door open, and he kept the young man who was about my age was saying, "Swami, you told me you'd get me a job." He was scolding Swami. And he went through this whole thing, and it was very funny. And finally, Swami said, "Well, jobs are hard to find." It was very funny. Just a wonderful example of Swami's humor. But then he said to me, just sort of out of the blue, he said, "Where are you from?" And I said, "I'm from Ojai." From Ojai, Swami. And he said, "Come on, Ojai." And he took the family into the smaller room. So there's a larger room and a smaller room. And we went into the smaller room. And for whatever reason, out of respect, I said I shouldn't sit down before Swami. And so my mother, who had been to see Swami many times, she went as fast as she could for his feet by the chair. And my wife also went there. But I stood off to the side thinking, well, I'll wait till Swami sits, and then I'll sit where I should, where he tells me to. And he came in, and he locked eyes on me and walked all the way. I say all the way because it was maybe this big, and kicking pillows out of the way and walking towards me, and took me by the hand. And I thought, out of Maya hits you like you can't believe it. And I thought, oh, I'll hold his arm. And we walked back to his chair. He never let go of my hand. And he fell into the chair. He even turned around, but he never let go of my hand. And fell into the chair, which was a low chair. And I fell under his chair and onto his armrest, and he was there, but I was like here with him. And he leaned back, and he put his foot on my leg, and I put my hand on, and I couldn't believe what was happening, in all honesty. And I'm telling the experience only so that you might imagine it on your own, how wonderful that might be. And so, but he said almost immediately, he did this thing where he pinched my cheek and he said, "Good boy, good boy," softly. And it's important that I should say softly, because later he would do it a little harder when the message was different. And what a great parenting. Everything from Swami is a lesson beyond a lesson beyond a lesson. And so when it's right, soft, and when, a little harder. And so for us, being with Swami was like a mother, a father, a grandmother, your best friend, everything all in one was Swami in this moment for us. And we couldn't get closer to him. We were think of someone that is just, we're just as close as we could get to him. And we were so happy. And he pinched my cheek and he said, "You drive too fast." He said, "Do you remember those 2 times I saved you?" And this is what he did.
Oh my goodness.
Now, the most amazing thing about that was he did it exactly like the driver. I had never even told anyone. In fact, I didn't remember it until he did it. And I just almost, I said, I told you, to my wife and my mom, I said, I told you he saved me. And it was a detail to show his omniscience that is unbelievable to me. That I'm there in everyone, all the time, I'm everything. And so it was a beautiful lesson for me that not only did his grace save me, but number 2, this lesson. And it was so sweet the way he did it. Just this bouncing and acting just exactly like I had said and seen. And so then he said, "Start early, drive slowly, arrive safely." And that is a spiritual lesson, obviously. The lesson being that, and this has been, I think, my most important lesson in life, is that every single thing is contained in the moment. This omnipresent moment, if I can remember what I'm supposed to do and think, if I can think of Swami, everything is happening for my own good right now. And for me, there's no higher lesson than the moment. And so that's what it's if I do that, then I'm driving slowly and I'm starting early and it all is right. And then next he said to me, he said, bad thoughts. Bad thoughts turn into action. No more bad thoughts. And of course, thoughts are the basis of everything that happens to us. It's all of our words. It's everything we plan and do. And so if we watch our thoughts and put them against our conscience, then that's the proper use of speaking correctly, acting correctly, Dharma. Well, if we watch our thoughts, it's a great step towards Dharma. Put everything against the conscience. And so this was all really wonderful. And then a couple other things happened, which were, this showed me his ability that he's even in my thoughts. So I had my hand on his foot, and I looked over across, and I noticed that my mother, it was me on his right side, my wife, and I noticed that she was holding his hand.
Wow.
She had taken his hand. And this is the most amazing thing, is I looked at that, and about, I can't use time. It happened like 1/10 of a second before the thought entered my mind, oh, I'd like to hold his hand. As the thought was entering my mind, Swami was looking at me and offering his hand. So before the thought, I can't explain it. It was the most wonderful example of how Swami is absolutely everything. And ultra sweet, the sweetest of the sweet. And so that was very special. And then, and I say this only that I hope you might imagine this on your own, but something that I think is very special to me, obviously, was he said to me, he said, hug, hug. And he leaned down and he pulled me up. And I wasn't very far away from him, but I put my head on his shoulder, and he was holding my back and I was holding his back. And I can tell you that Swami was very strong, very strong. So I don't know the lesson in it other than his grace. It was something that I remembered. I had an interview on a cassette tape. The young people don't know even what a cassette tape is, but it was an interview that Swami had given where he had hugged a man, and I listened to that thing. I must have listened to it 100 times and would cry and cry and cry about how special that was. So somehow or another, it was Swami's special grace. So, and then the last thing I'll say about that whole time with him that I think is really important, especially during Christmas, is Swami said to me multiple times, he said, "What do you want?" And I was ready for that question, I thought, before, because I said, "Swami, I want whatever you will give." And that's something else. But then we went out into the other room, and he looked at me again. It was so fascinating. I still marvel at how things happen around Swami, but he had blessed the smallest trinket by touching it for somebody in the room. And instantly there was a fervor in this room that people were looking for a trinket that Swami might bless. And I was so locked on Swami's eyes and his face, I could see out of my peripheral vision, I could see this, everyone looked away at the same time. I don't know how that's possible, but of course anything's possible around Swami. And he looked at me and he said, "And what do you want, sir?" And then he looked away. But what a lesson, because it's made me examine in my life, what do I want? And what's fascinating about desires is, if it's money, then why do I want money? And then ultimately you might get to the source of why. And usually it's some ego-based thing. You know, I want fame. Well, that's easy. That's ego-based, right? Or, you know, there's other things. But if you look at what you want and why, it's a fascinating spiritual thing to do. And I highly recommend that if you examine what you want and why, it's a special spiritual practice. So it was a great gift of Swami's. And lastly, I wanted to talk a little bit about how being in Swami's organization has changed me. The other day I heard an absolutely outrageous statistic, and this is how I feel. I've always wondered how many stars there are in the universe. And as it turns out, I used to say I'm as lucky as someone going and picking a grain of sand on the beach. That's how lucky I feel. But I came to find out that there are 77,000 more stars in the universe than there are grains of sand on the earth. And then I thought, well, that's not good enough. That one beach, I'm not lucky for the one beach. I'm even luckier than that. It's more the odds of Swami finding me, I feel very lucky. And so being in his organization, I have no idea how I'm sitting here today and how I have heard Swami's name. I just feel very lucky, very blessed to have even heard his name. But then someone asked me one time, hey, would you like to be devotional coordinator at the center? And I fell in love with setting the altar up. And I thought, I'm the luckiest person ever. And I've said yes to other things, and luckily people asked me, and I had an opportunity to say yes. But I feel that all work is Swami's work. The family, your job, everything is Swami's work. But there's a special umbrella over doing Swami's work in the Sai Organization. It's a place where Swami, it's the most perfect school. It's the most perfect hospital in which Swami accelerates your spiritual life. If you work for him, you are changed. Those around you are changed. Your family's changed. Your neighborhood, your society's changed. The elevation of the planet is changed. All because we work together like a bunch of coal, and we have fire, and that fire spreads. And it's Swami's love, obviously. But what it does is he gives him the chance, the smallest effort, the smallest thing, he pours his grace onto you. He gives you everything, and sometimes he takes away everything, but only for your good. And it has been my one grain of sand on the earth, 77,000 times more stars in the universe. I feel so fortunate that I've somehow or another, Swami gave me the grace to be associated with you all, to do some work, to serve him. And it has transformed everything. It's transformed me. And all of that is just, it's his love that it works through his work. His work is transforming the world. And I love that quote Swami says, sometimes avatars come to change regions of space. We have no idea how vast Swami is. I remember a story of, and I won't try to repeat it because I'll probably ruin it, but that Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva came and they wanted to know if they were the greatest. And they went to the mother, Parvati, and she said, I don't know, but I know where we can go. And they go to this kingdom, and all along the hall are chairs, and each chair has the four of them. And they realize universe upon universe, time upon time, reality we can't even understand. And at the very end of the hall were 2 feet, Bhagavan Sri SathyaSai Baba's feet. And they had to strain their neck to see his greatness. And so I feel like never forget how lucky we are. We all talk about it, but let's keep saying it forever, because we should never forget just how special this time is. We are with the triple avatar that has never come and will never come again. He has said it. This is the most special time. Sathya, the form, is so special. But we have Shirdi, Sathya, and Prema as this event that has never happened. will never happen again. And so I love talking about this. I love talking about how wonderful and how lucky we are. I very, very much, it is my pleasure and my honor to have been asked to be here. I find it very lucky and very special on my part to spend Christmas with you. And remember, Jesus, his only joy was spreading divine love, offering divine love, and living in divine love. We should be like Jesus. So, Sai Ram.